The sun had long set on the quiet suburban street where Alex and Rachel lived. The warm glow from the kitchen light reflected off the windows, casting a soft, welcoming hue over the well-kept house. Inside, the couple sat at their dining table, enjoying a simple meal, a routine they had grown accustomed to over the years. Alex, a 32-year-old corporate worker, had never been one for grand gestures. He earned an average salary, enough to cover their modest expenses and a few luxuries here and there. But nothing extravagant. Rachel, on the other hand, was different. At 30, she had an eye for finer things. It wasn't that she demanded expensive gifts or threw lavish parties, but the way she adorned herself, designer bags, brand-name clothes, and high-end jewelry, was a lifestyle Alex couldn't quite match. He didn't mind, at first. He loved Rachel. They had been married for 4 years, and in his eyes, their life together was solid, good, even. But there were always those small moments when something didn't sit quite right. It started with the shopping sprees. Rachel would come home with bags from exclusive stores, pulling out new dresses, shoes, and accessories. One day, it was a $500 handbag she proudly displayed on their kitchen counter. Alex had raised an eyebrow, asking, "Where did this come from?" Her response was always the same. "I got it on sale." It was a freelance project that paid well. Alex smiled, the knot of suspicion slowly loosening in his chest. Freelance work, she claimed, seemed to be the reason behind her sudden wealth. She did everything from digital design to content writing, but nothing seemed concrete enough for Alex to ask for details. And yet, it didn't make sense. She would come home with items he knew cost far more than what he made in a week. Despite his growing doubts, Alex brushed it aside. Maybe he was just overthinking. He trusted Rachel. After all, she had always been a loving, supportive wife. She was everything he wanted, beautiful, smart, and seemingly grounded. But there was an underlying tension that Alex couldn't ignore. "Maybe I'll try doing some freelance work too," he jokingly suggested one evening as they sat watching TV, sipping on their glasses of wine. "Could use a little extra cash to keep up with your shopping habits." Rachel laughed softly, her eyes glinting mischievously. "I'm sure you'll do great. But you know, freelance isn't for everyone. It requires a certain kind of confidence." Alex chuckled along, but deep down, he felt something stir. It wasn't jealousy. It was curiosity. Days passed, and life continued. But Rachel's spending habits seemed to escalate. Soon, it wasn't just the handbags and clothes. There were weekend getaways to luxurious resorts, dinners at exclusive restaurants, and even expensive spa treatments. It was as though money flowed effortlessly into their home, and Alex had no idea where it was coming from. Then, one evening, Alex decided to bring it up again. He had come home from work a little early and found Rachel in the living room, surrounded by shopping bags. Her face lit up when she saw him, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. "Rachel," Alex said softly, standing in the doorway, his hands in his pockets. "I need to ask you something." She looked up from the bags, her smile faltering for just a moment before she put on her usual playful expression. "What is it, babe?" He took a deep breath, his voice steady. "Where's all this money coming from? I mean, I know you do freelance work, but this is starting to feel like more than just a side project." Rachel put down the bag she was holding and crossed her arms. She tilted her head as if considering his question. Her smile returned, but it was more measured this time. "I told you before, Alex. Freelance work. It pays well if you know what you're doing. And, yes, I've been picking up a few extra gigs here and there. Trust me, it's all legitimate." Alex hesitated for a moment. Something about her tone didn't sit right with him. It was too practiced. Too smooth. But he pushed the thought away. "You're right," he said, forcing a smile. I just don't understand why you never tell me the details. That's all. It seems like you're making a lot more than I ever thought possible with freelance work. Rachel walked over to him, her hands on his shoulders, giving him a soft, reassuring squeeze. Babe, I promise you, it's nothing shady. It's just what I do to keep things interesting. Don't worry about it. You know I've always got your back. The tension that had been building inside Alex seemed to dissipate, and he let out a long breath. She was right, after all. He trusted her. But as he stood there, holding her hand and looking into her eyes, the same nagging thought continued to echo in his mind. Where was the money really coming from? The office party was the highlight of Alex's year, a chance for him to socialize with colleagues outside the confines of deadlines and presentations. Every year, his company hosted a lavish gathering, with the usual clinking of glasses, the laughter echoing through the room, and the occasional awkward small talk. This year, Alex was particularly excited because he had invited Rachel to come along. He had always hoped that she could meet some of the people he worked with and feel a part of his world. He was proud of her, after all, his beautiful, confident wife who always seemed to stand out in a crowd. Rachel looked stunning that evening, as she always did. She wore a sparkling black dress, the fabric clinging to her curves, and paired it with a pair of elegant heels. Her auburn hair was styled perfectly, cascading in soft waves over her shoulders. Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of pride as they walked into the venue together, heads turning as they entered. He even noticed a few colleagues nodding in appreciation, though he thought little of it at the time. But as the evening wore on, something strange started to happen. Alex began to feel like he was no longer the center of attention. Conversations around him seemed to pause whenever Rachel passed by. Groups of coworkers exchanged odd looks, and there was a strange tension in the air whenever they were near. It was subtle at first, just a glance here, a hushed whisper there, but it was enough to unsettle him. At one point, Alex noticed two of his colleagues, Mark and Sarah, laughing as they watched Rachel across the room. It wasn't the light-hearted, friendly laughter that you'd expect at a work event. There was something darker in it. Sarah raised an eyebrow and nudged Mark with her elbow, both of them smirking. Alex's gut twisted. He turned to Rachel, trying to shake off the unease that was creeping up on him. "Hey, what's going on with them?" he asked, trying to sound casual as he gestured toward Mark and Sarah. Rachel didn't seem to notice anything. She smiled and shrugged, taking a sip of her champagne. "Oh, don't worry about them. You know how office gossip works. People just have too much time on their hands." Alex nodded, though he didn't feel convinced. Still, he didn't want to make a scene. He smiled and tried to focus on the conversation, but his mind kept wandering back to the odd looks he had been getting. It felt like something was off, like there was a secret everyone else knew but him. As the night came to a close and they were walking to the car, Alex's anxiety was building. It wasn't just the way his colleagues had acted. There was something else, something he couldn't place. The whispers that followed Rachel, the way people had reacted to her presence, it all seemed so deliberate. If you're enjoying the story so far, make sure to like the video, it really helps us bring more thrilling stories to you. The next day at the office, things only grew stranger. Alex was seated at his desk when he overheard two of his coworkers talking in the hallway just outside his office door. They didn't know he was there, and the conversation quickly grabbed his attention. "I swear, she looks just like the girl from..." "I know, right? And she's married to Alex. Can you believe it?" The voices trailed off as the door closed behind them. Alex's curiosity got the better of him, and he stood up, peering out into the hallway to see who had been talking. Mark and Sarah. They weren't even trying to hide their conversation. Alex felt his heart rate increase. He was certain they had been talking about Rachel. His mind raced as he tried to process what was happening. Was it just gossip? Or was there something more going on? Later that afternoon, while grabbing a coffee in the break room, Alex found himself standing next to David, one of the senior managers. David had always been friendly with him, but today, there was an air of discomfort between them. David avoided eye contact and fidgeted with his mug as they exchanged pleasantries. "So, Alex," David started, clearing his throat, "you and Rachel had a good time at the party, right?" Alex nodded, trying to gauge David's tone. "Yeah, we did. But, I noticed a few people seemed to be acting strangely around her." David paused, his eyes flickering to the side, then back to Alex. "Yeah, well, Rachel's, quite popular." Alex raised an eyebrow. "Popular? In what way?" David hesitated again, his unease palpable. "Well, you know, people talk." He then quickly changed the subject. "But hey, we should catch up about that project, huh?" Alex didn't buy it. The awkwardness was too blatant. He'd heard the whispers. He knew what people were saying. That evening, after a long day at work, Alex sat down at his desk at home. The words from his colleagues swirled in his mind. "Rachel's popular," David had said. But what did that mean? What was going on? His curiosity got the best of him. With a sinking feeling in his stomach, he opened his laptop and began searching. It didn't take long before he stumbled across something that would change everything. Rachel's name appeared in the search results. At first, it seemed innocent: social media accounts, a few random articles. But then, the more he dug, the clearer it became. There it was. The link to her OnlyFans account. His hand shook as he clicked the link, a wave of disbelief washing over him. The page was exactly what he had feared: Rachel's account, with images of her posing seductively in revealing outfits. His stomach dropped. It was all there, in plain sight. His wife, the woman he had trusted, was running an OnlyFans account, posting explicit content for paying subscribers. And to make matters worse, Alex realized, his colleagues were some of those subscribers. He sat back in his chair, stunned. The truth was too much to process. He had never imagined this. Rachel, the woman he thought he knew inside and out, had been hiding a side of herself he never could have anticipated. And now, the money that had been flowing so freely into their lives suddenly made sense. The discovery of Rachel's OnlyFans account was a bombshell, a revelation that tore through the foundation of Alex's trust in her. He spent the entire night staring at the screen, unable to look away from the images of his wife, images that he had never expected to see. Each click, each video, each photo that was meant for someone else was a dagger to his heart. He had always thought of Rachel as his, and now she felt like a stranger. The shock was paralyzing at first, but as the hours dragged on, anger began to take root in Alex's chest. His mind swirled with conflicting emotions: betrayal, confusion, humiliation. How had he missed this? How had she kept this from him for so long? But then, amidst the turmoil, a cold clarity washed over him. He realized that his wife's actions weren't just a betrayal of their marriage, they were a threat to his future. Alex had always known he wasn't wealthy. He made a decent salary, but nothing that would allow him to escape his modest life. Rachel, however, had been living far beyond their means. And now, it was clear where the money had come from. For years, Alex had been afraid of confronting Rachel. He had feared that a divorce would drain him financially. The thought of paying alimony to a woman who had betrayed him in such a way seemed unbearable. But now, he saw an opportunity. If he could gather the right evidence, he could use it to force her into a divorce without the risk of losing everything. He spent the next few days planning, carefully considering his options. His mind raced as he devised a strategy that would allow him to get the upper hand. His first step was to gather proof. Rachel's OnlyFans account was the key. If he could document her activities, record her private videos, capture the messages she sent to subscribers, he could use it in court. It would be the leverage he needed to secure a divorce without alimony. The plan was set in motion. Alex created a fake profile, carefully crafting an anonymous identity that would blend into the sea of subscribers Rachel had. It wasn't difficult. Rachel had plenty of followers who had subscribed to her for the explicit content she posted. He paid for a subscription under the fake name, his heart racing as he waited for the first interaction. Days passed, and Alex watched in silence as Rachel continued to post. He saw her flirt with other subscribers, engage in private chats, and send intimate videos, all while keeping up the facade of a loving wife to him. It was all too much to bear, yet Alex couldn't stop himself. He had to know more. He had to see how far this went. One evening, when he logged into his anonymous account, he saw an option for a private video call. His breath hitched in his chest. This was the moment he had been waiting for. He clicked the option and requested a private video with Rachel, fully aware that she would not recognize him. He felt sick to his stomach as he waited for the connection to be made. A few minutes later, the video call began. The screen flickered to life, and there she was. Rachel, in front of her camera, dressed in something revealing, her body positioned just so. She smiled at the camera, clearly excited to be interacting with a subscriber. "Hey there," Rachel purred, her voice sultry. "You're looking for a private show, huh?" Alex's heart pounded in his chest. He could hardly believe what he was seeing. This was his wife, the woman he had shared his life with. The woman he had vowed to be loyal to. And yet here she was, acting like a different person entirely. "Yeah," Alex typed in the chat, keeping his voice neutral. "Show me what you've got." Rachel smiled mischievously, and the interaction began. For a few moments, Alex's mind seemed to go numb, focusing only on the screen in front of him. He had never imagined he would be in this position, watching his wife, the woman he thought he knew, engaging in such explicit behavior. It was as though he was watching someone else entirely. But he wasn't here for pleasure. He was here to gather evidence. As the call progressed, Alex made sure to record every moment. He captured her responses, her body language, and the intimate details of the video, everything he could use to prove that Rachel had been living a double life. He wasn't sure how he would use the footage yet, but he knew it would be vital. Then came the moment he had been dreading. Rachel's face suddenly froze in shock as she saw the name on the screen. Her eyes widened as recognition hit her. "Alex," she asked, her voice cracking. "Is that you?" Alex's heart skipped a beat, but he kept his composure. "Surprised to see me?" he asked coldly. "I guess you didn't expect your husband to be one of your subscribers." Rachel quickly ended the video call, but the damage had been done. Alex sat in front of his computer, his pulse racing. He had everything he needed now, proof of her betrayal, proof of the secret life she had been living. He had been right all along. His suspicions weren't unfounded. But now, he had the power. He could use this against her. The next day, Alex didn't confront Rachel. He couldn't. Not yet. He had to think this through. He had to make sure he had a solid plan before he revealed what he knew. But he knew one thing for certain, he wasn't going to let her get away with this. Alex had never felt more certain of his actions. He had all the evidence he needed, the private video call, the conversations, the recordings. Rachel's double life was laid bare before him, and he was no longer the confused, betrayed husband. He was now the man in control, ready to take the next step. That evening, when Rachel returned home from work, Alex was sitting at the kitchen table, the dim light casting long shadows across the room. His face was calm, unreadable. Rachel entered, her usual cheerfulness replaced by a subtle tension in her posture. She knew something was off. The air between them felt thick, charged. "Alex, what's going on?" Rachel asked, a nervous edge in her voice. "You've been acting strange lately." Alex stood up slowly, walking toward the door. He closed it softly, making sure they were alone. His gaze was unwavering as he finally spoke. "You know what's going on, Rachel," he said quietly. "I know everything." Her eyes widened, but she quickly masked the shock with a forced laugh. "What are you talking about?" "I don't know what you—" "Cut the act, Rachel," Alex interrupted, his voice low but firm. "I saw everything. I know about your OnlyFans account. The subscribers, the private videos, the messages. I've seen it all." Rachel froze. Her face drained of color as her eyes flickered with fear. For a brief moment, Alex almost felt sorry for her, almost. But the anger quickly returned. The sense of betrayal had been too deep. "I'm sorry, Alex," Rachel stammered, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this. I never wanted to hurt you." "Don't bother with the excuses," Alex said, his voice icy. "You've been lying to me for years. You've been living a life I never knew existed. And now, it's all out in the open." Rachel looked away, unable to meet his gaze. The shame was evident in her posture, but Alex didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. He had been the fool, but not anymore. "I can't believe you've been doing this behind my back," Alex continued. "All these years, I thought we had something real. But it turns out, I was just the fool who didn't see what was right in front of me. You didn't need a husband. You needed a paycheck." Rachel's face crumpled as the truth of his words sank in. She opened her mouth to speak, but Alex held up a hand, silencing her. "You're not getting out of this. You're going to pay for what you've done." Rachel looked at him in disbelief. "What do you mean? What do you want from me?" Alex took a deep breath, his plan already in motion. "I want a divorce. And I want it on my terms. No alimony. No custody battles. You're going to sign the papers, and we're done." Rachel's eyes welled up with tears. She had no idea Alex had been plotting this, had no idea how much he had seen. But now, as the weight of his words hit her, the reality of the situation set in. She had no power here. He held all the cards. "I can't believe this is happening," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Alex nodded, his face emotionless. "Believe it. And don't even think about fighting me. You've already lost." The divorce was swift, just as Alex had planned. Rachel signed the papers without a fight, the weight of her actions crushing her will to resist. She had been blindsided by Alex's coldness, but deep down, she knew she had no one to blame but herself. She had betrayed him, and now she had to face the consequences. The day the divorce was finalized, Alex couldn't help but feel a strange sense of satisfaction. He had won, but at what cost? The woman he had loved, the woman who had been by his side for years, was now nothing more than a distant memory. The marriage was over, but the bitterness lingered. He quickly moved on, as he had always intended. There was another woman now, a new start, a chance for happiness that had eluded him in his marriage. Her name was Lily, a colleague at work who had always been kind and supportive. She was everything Rachel wasn't: honest, gentle, and understanding. Lily and Alex began dating soon after his divorce, and the relationship felt like a breath of fresh air. It was new, exciting, and most importantly, it was real. For the first time in a long while, Alex felt like he was living a life of his own, free from the lies and deceit that had defined his marriage to Rachel. But Rachel wasn't done. She had been devastated by the divorce, but she wasn't ready to let go. The guilt, the shame, it was all too much for her to bear. She couldn't help but feel anger towards Alex for moving on so quickly, for finding someone new while she was left to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. And there was something else, something that burned within her. The need for revenge. Rachel had spent weeks wallowing in her own misery, but the more she thought about Alex and his new life, the more she realized something: he had been cheating on her long before their marriage ended. He had found someone else, someone like Lily, while they were still together. Rachel's suspicions grew, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she had been wronged in ways she hadn't even considered. She decided to reach out to Lily. What better way to make Alex feel the pain she had endured than to expose the truth? She contacted Lily, using a fake account, pretending to be someone concerned about Alex's past. Rachel crafted a message that would make Lily question everything. "Hey Lily, I just wanted to let you know that Alex was already married when you two started seeing each other. He's been hiding a lot from you. You deserve to know the truth." Lily was horrified when she received the message. She had never known Alex had been married before, and she felt a sharp sting of betrayal. But the message didn't end there. In her next conversation with Rachel, the truth was laid bare. Rachel revealed how Alex had been distant and cold for years, how he had used her while hiding his true intentions, and how his love for Lily wasn't as pure as it seemed. Lily, devastated and feeling betrayed, confronted Alex. She was furious, but also confused. How could he have kept such a huge part of his life hidden from her? How could he have lied so easily? Alex tried to explain himself, but Lily had already made up her mind. The trust was gone. She couldn't be with someone who had hidden such a major part of his life from her, someone who had betrayed his wife while they were still together. "I can't do this anymore, Alex," Lily said, her voice shaking. "I can't be with someone who has lied to me this much. I need to leave." Alex watched helplessly as Lily walked away, the woman he had hoped to build a future with slipping through his fingers. For a moment, he stood in silence, the weight of his actions crashing down on him. He had gotten what he thought he wanted: revenge on Rachel, a fresh start with Lily, but in the end, he had lost everything. As he sat alone in his apartment that night, the truth settled in. He had won the battle, but he had lost the war. His marriage had ended, but so had his relationship with Lily. He had destroyed both, all because he had been consumed by his need for revenge, his desire to control the narrative of his life. In the end, both Alex and Rachel got what they deserved. Alex's pursuit of revenge had backfired, leaving him alone and bitter, having lost not only his wife but the woman he thought could replace her. Rachel, too, was left with nothing. Her life had been a lie, and the moment she sought revenge, she had condemned herself to a life of resentment and loneliness. Karma had a way of finding both of them. Rachel's attempt to destroy Alex's new relationship had cost her more than she could have imagined. And Alex, who had thought he had outsmarted her, was now the one who was truly alone. They both had the life they had created for themselves, a life filled with emptiness and regret. The love, the trust, the happiness that they had once shared was gone, destroyed by the very things that had made them feel alive. And in the end, both Alex and Rachel were left to reflect on the choices they had made, knowing that no amount of revenge or deception could ever undo the damage they had done. Who do you think was right in this situation, Alex or Rachel? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy crime thriller stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more.